Hi, and thanks for joining us. This is a Boston Sci-Fi podcast. My name is Garen Daly. I'm joined with David Giancola and Alexis Boggende, and we're going to be talking about 90s sci-fi, the 10 best 90s sci-fi films. And I hope you're going to disagree with us because you should, because this is a very subjective test, and and part of it is that there are a lot of other films that we would like to do, but we wanted to do a top 10 because listicles are important these days. It somehow defines ourselves when we can list things. So let's welcome Alexis. How you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm
Thank
fine.
you for
And
having
David,
me.
how are you doing?
It's great to be here. Very excited. It's the first
All
of
right.
the year, correct?
Pardon?
First show of the year, correct? First show of the season.
Thank you for reminding me. Yes, it's our first show of the season. This is our inaugural fifth season podcast. And we've got some other ones that we've got already started planning on. We're going to do an 80s segment, a 70s segment. We're going to do a thing on fandom. I will probably do something from horror because that always means we can bring Alexis back and she can talk about all her body horror stuff that she
Oh,
seems to love so much.
I do.
And David can always talk about his encyclopedic knowledge of film.
Yeah, no pressure on us.
It's one of the things I like about these conversations is that we bring a lot to it. And let's start off with Alexis. When you think of 90s sci-fi films, is there anything that jumps out to you about them?
I think it's like, I mean, so I know we'll go over it, but like when I think of like 90s sci-fi, I think immediately of like Jurassic Park. And it's just like the questioning of like what can like basically what can humanity do and what absolute disasters would have and if we were at that level, which is, I think a very common theme in sci-fi of like this could be us if we continue to do bad things as humans. So I always kind of think of that, motif, specifically in Jurassic Park, because that movie, as much as I love it, everyone in there is just such a hot mess. But I'll get into that rant later.
And what about you, David? When you think of 90s sci-fi?
So for me, it's interesting with 90s. A huge fan of 90s sci-fi, but it was the year where we embraced CGI in a big way.
Exactly.
Jurassic
Yes.
Park, and I like the earlier stuff. I will tell you now that the Jurassic Park is brilliant. I mean, and I want to say right now, not all CGI is bad, not all special effects are bad, but we went in the 90s too far with CGI and we backed off it, but we're going to talk about some movies like Gattaca, which uses very little special effects and a really great cerebral sci-fi movie. So I love that about the 90s. It was kind of the end of those cerebral sci-fi movies for a long time.
While we're on the topic of CGI, there was a lot of conversation back in the 90s about how storytelling was changing because of these artificial elements being introduced to the story.
Right.
And now we're going through that same kind of conversation, but in a little more dire way with AI, artificial intelligence. And I'm wondering whether we're going to see history repeat itself. And I have no answer to this question. If you guys have any thoughts about it, jump in. But
Yeah, I think that's absolutely green screen was something we overused, and it led to the huge reliance on it to the point that we have the Marvel movies, and I don't think those have one real shot at them. Those movies, they're versions of their actors with animation, and there's a certain type of movie we now get in 2025 that started in the 90s with Jurassic Park, which is heavy CGI, heavy practical effects, big names,
Yeah.
$300 million, boom, boom. How many of those movies we had? Hundreds.
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
well, it
And
makes money, and that's what apparently it's the only thing that's drawing people into the theaters.
which like for me, I don't know, it kind of repels me to be honest. Like the Marvel, I mean, Aaron, you've heard me rant about Marvel, and like to each their own, it's just really not my bag. Like I was ranting to my partner the other day. I watched Gladiator 2, and like I love Ridley, but he's killing me. Like just seeing like CGI sharks in the Coliseum, it just really takes me out of it.
Did they have CGI sharks in the Coliseum?
Yeah, and then they're like,
Really?
Ridley, there's no sharks in the Coliseum. He's like, yeah, there was. We're like, Ridley, there wasn't. Like, I love you, but there isn't. And they're just like tiger sharks, like, going around. I'm like, oh God. So yeah, I think it I know it attracts some people, and like again, to each their own. That's what art is. That's what cinema is. But for me personally, David, now that you brought it up, just like the Marvel movies and just like I said, like Gladiator 2, it just like repels me. I'm like, it just completely takes me out of it.
Well, I think there are good ones and bad ones, but I think it becomes a crutch. And I will say I have done that in my career. I've been, specifically with my last movie, Accelerator, I remember there was a point where I'm like, pull out the green screen because we were budgetarily deprived of a location and I never was happy with it. But sometimes you have to make that decision as a filmmaker.
Well, I was just interested reading in the trades today that James Cameron is looking at AI to be able to cut the budget of his films in half so that he can make more blockbusters. Yeah. So I think that's going to be a major impulse, what's going to happen in Hollywood.
There was a point for me when I was watching one of these big Marvel movies, maybe it was one of the recent Star Wars, and they had like one shot in the whole movie that had no effects in it. And it stood out like a star. Oh, it was one of the Star Wars movies, like Last Jedi, one of those. They had one or two shots that don't have an effect in them, and it stands out.
Yeah.
And you realize what you're seeing is so artificial, and it pulls you out of it. I don't hate all those Marvel movies. I like some of them. I think they get a bad rap. They made a lot of money for everybody, but I think you can go too far with that.
Yeah.
Well, let's take a look. Let's grab our first film in our list here, which is Galaxy Quest, I adore that film, and it's kind of a satire or a riff on Star Trek. Let's take a look at a clip of Galaxy Quest.
On, Ted, on.
Con, and Jason Nesmith and his entire crew are no-shows here at the big event, much to the disappointment of all of these fans, known as West.
Bye, be back soon.
Well, hey, Brandon, where are you going with all those fireworks?
Well, the Protector got super accelerated coming out of the black hole, and it's like nailed the atmosphere at Mark 15, which you guys know is pretty unstable, obviously, so we're going to help Laredo guide it on the Vox Ultra frequency carrier and use Roman candles for visual confirmation.
All right, dinner's at 7.
Back to you, Marcia.
Well, he's outside.
I think one of the reasons why I love Galaxy Quest is that it's making fun of some stuff, and it does it, and it has this dry humor underneath it all.
It's a very sweet movie, and it never that movie. I think what makes that movie so eminently rewatchable is that it never picks on any of its characters. It's sympathetic to even the crazy aliens and even the egotistical Tim Allen lead. It treats all the characters quite kindly, and I think that's what makes I can always watch it.
But I mean, does that live off of Star Trek? Does that make, because we all have these cultural references to Star Trek and what went on in Star Trek and the voyages and the rumors about how the cast and crew got along? Right. Does that make the backstory of Galaxy Quest more enjoyable for us as an audience? What do you think, Alexis?
I think so. I mean, even like with like, I kind of, being admittedly more of a Star Wars person, my dad is a huge Trekkie and he loves Galaxy Quest. I appreciate, kind of to David's point, that they treat it very, very wholesomely, and it's not like really picking on anyone. So I think it makes it more enjoyable, just like the lovable atmosphere that the movie has, if that makes sense.
Well, anything with Tony Shalhoub is going to have a lovable character.
Yeah. Also, just Justin Long racing down the stairs with his fireworks. I just love him so much. He's so chaotic.
I can remember the 90s, Garen. I can remember that. So, even when this movie came out in the 90s, I can remember going to some of those shows, and now you can get every celebrity. There are no celebrities that won't do signings now. I mean, you can, and there's a show coming up here in New England, I think, somewhere up there in Massachusetts, and you will see A-list stars. You will see.
Oh yeah, that's the Fan Expo.
It was for the B actors. It wasn't. So it's interesting. You watch this movie now, and it's more accepted, that whole going to a show and signing. When this movie came out, it was considered, at least what I knew at the time, it was considered slumming. So your career had to be on the downside.
Yeah.
And that's not true now. It's interesting. Everything has changed since this movie came out. You want to go see, what's his name? Who's now Iron Man? the big, any one of these bigger.
Robert Downey Jr. Yeah,
Robert Downey Jr. You can see him. Back then, you couldn't in the 90s.
Mm.
Considered career suicide to do the shows.
Well, again, it goes back to, again, as you guys know, I'm more of a history person, and I love entertainment history. But that was the same thing was true with TV and movies for a long time. Is that if you did TV, you were slumming, and now now it's like you're crossing over. And when you get Helen Mirren in a series TV show about a Western,
with Harrison Ford to boot too.
Yeah,
Harrison Ford to boot. Yeah. So I mean, it's we go through these things where what was taboo or shunned upon is now much more accepted. And I think that has to do with fandom and breaking down that fourth wall where fans want to know what's going on and they want to be engaged with their stars.
But I will tell you, Garen, that a lot of people in the industry believe that's what's killing the celebrity is too much familiarity, having too much access. I don't know if it's true, but that's what a lot of people are saying.
But let's explore that for a second or two. You're seeing the Hollywood is saying that this closeness between fandom and stars is actually ruining it because there's.
Well, I think Hollywood, and this is for me talking with agents in LA and Hollywood. I think Hollywood is always looking to figure out what they're doing wrong when they know they're doing something wrong. I don't think they know why they're doing it wrong, but I think they know that the celebrity is dying and movies are not performing the way they used to. And there's a lot of different reasons. And one of the reasons I've been told by agents repeatedly is those people are the celebrities are going on the shows and they're getting, I guess Mark Hamill gets $200 an autograph. I don't know if that's true. That's what they're telling me. And they're saying that those experiences, it's draining the magic out of the experience. That's what I've heard.
But still, when you go to a place like Fan Expo, the Boston Fan Expo, which I believe is in August.
I think so.
It's crap. It's full of people.
I've been there. Mobbed.
Yeah.
But there's an argument. But you got to understand, Garen, these agents don't make money off those shows. They only make money if they book you on a gig. You go to the shows, you get a lot of cash, sign autographs, you keep it all. So there's a business side behind that too.
Well, I think there's a lot wrong with the business side of Hollywood because it does not understand that they're telling stories.
Correct.
They're selling potatoes. And they want the potatoes to be uniform and easy to figure out, and so that they can make sure that their stock prices stay up.
Right.
So, our next film though is about people not being who they seem they are in a world where you need to be extra special to be able to move forward, and that's Gattaca, and this is a very much of a story-driven film. Do you have any before we play our clip, David, do you have any thoughts about it?
Oh, pick on Alexis. What are you picking on me?
Oh, I'm going to pick on Alexis later on. You know that. Alexis knows that too.
I do know this.
When we get into Jurassic Park, we're going to be like,
shut up, Dave. No, I've watched this movie a million times. So, I mean, and you're right. Tony Shalhoub steals his scenes. I think there's a couple scenes. And the movie's great. And it's directed by Andrew Niccol, who directed one of my very favorite movies, The Truman Show, which handles some similar topics. And he's a writer-director too. I don't know if he wrote this. I don't remember. But I love Andrew Niccol. And I love what they do with this. And what the movie's saying, what Gattaca's saying, even before we see the clip, is it's saying that genetics isn't everything. If you try, it kind of has this message of if you put your head to it, you can do it. Maybe you shouldn't listen to everybody else. It's a good message.
What I always took away from it is more along the lines of like, we are trying to refine ourselves as a race, and therefore we're going to separate the good from the bad, and hopefully create a super race. And it always seemed to me that that's stupid because you get your best ideas from Mad Men.
Right, but you remember the ending?
Yeah.
The guy, can I give away the ending or do we care?
Sure, go ahead.
Well, I mean, you have Jude Law's character who is supposed to be a guy who's genetically perfect to travel in space. He ends up killing himself. And the guy who's not supposed to be ready, which is, I forget his name, but
Ethan Hawke.
He ends up traveling, interstellar. So it's a very great ending for him. It's a perfect ending, that movie.
But again, I think it's because we there's a segment of our population that wants to control who we are to become. And they have an idea of who we should be. But in reality, some of the best ideas come from outside the box, from the people who are a little crazy or who are stumbling around in the dark and they discover something. It's a moment of Satori or something like that. You're nodding your head, Alexis. What do you say?
I love that. No, I think that was beautifully said, Garen. I couldn't agree more. I love that. No, I really like the way you phrased that. That was perfect.
All right, so we've gone through Galaxy Quest and Gattaca. Now we go to Jurassic Park. All right, and the one thing, my favorite story about Jurassic Park is that Spielberg directed this and he directed Jaws. And when he directed Jaws, you didn't see Bruce the shark for like 45 minutes into the film, but he learned his lessons that the audience would not tolerate that by the time he made Jurassic Park. So you see your first dinosaur in 10 minutes. And this is the scene that we're actually going to do a clip of. So let's roll that scene of them meeting their first dinosaur.
This species of Variformin's been extinct since the Cretaceous period. I mean, this thing is a this thing. Why?
It's a dinosaur.
You did it. You crazy son of a bitch, you did it.
We can just tear up the rule book on it. Cold-bloodedness, it doesn't apply. They're totally wrong. This is a warm-bodied creature.
This thing doesn't live in a swamp.
This thing's got, what, a 25, 27-foot neck?
Brachiosaurus 30.
I don't quite understand why I am so attracted to dinosaurs like every other little kid in the world.
Same.
I mean, they're a lost race and they got destroyed, but they would eat you in a heartbeat. I mean, so I still don't quite understand what that is. But what I do like about that scene, not only is the CGI effect really good, but John Williams' score is really kind of very elegant, and I think that's what makes it feel.
Actually, Garen, I'm sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
Go ahead. No,
I was watching that again, and it occurs to me how unimpressive it is in the context of 2025. And I remember seeing that in the theater when it came out and my jaw dropping. But it's interesting watching it now. I look at the direction, the music from John Williams, Sam Neill's performance, which is great. I mean, if you just didn't even see, you look at the excitement, and in that movie, he's the smart doctor, but he turns into a babbling idiot as soon as you put him in front of a brontosaurus or whatever. And he stays like that. He doesn't come out of it. He doesn't recover. He's blown away, and he's the authority. And it's really interesting storytelling technique to take the authority that you've established. Would you say it's 15 minutes first dinosaur? He spends the first 10 minutes of the movie telling you how important he is, and then you show the dinosaur and you reduce him to nothing. And it's a great storytelling technique.
Well, that's Spielberg for you.
Yeah, that's why he's so good.
Yeah. You had something to say there, Alexis?
I mean, I absolutely adore Jurassic Park because I think it's always going to be so relevant to just humanity and like the stupid things that we do as a race and how really we just kind of destroy everything we touch. I think John Hammond is like absolutely the worst. I think he's such a villain. And I think
he's not, he doesn't intend to be a villain.
Exactly. But in the book, he's kind of worse. But in the movie, I think as a kid, like watching Jurassic Park, I was like, this guy's the worst. But as like an adult person, I'm like, this guy is actually a huge SOB. Like he's the worst. And just like what he's doing and he just can absolutely like tearing apart all that we know and what we should be doing, and it's just like, just don't mess with that, man. Please don't mess with that. And because of him, how many people get like ripped apart or killed or eaten off a bathroom stall in the rain. You know, it's just, I think just this thing, this topic of you know, controlling everything we touch, animals, you know, dinosaurs. I mean, we just like some genetics company just birthed like the first dire wolf in what 10,000 years or something like that. It's just like, that is wonderful. I love seeing the little dire wolves. Super happy they're back, but at the same time, like, I don't know, it's just like, I just think man thinks that they're this god and we're just so squashable, and I love that Jurassic Park kind of smushes that in your face. I don't know, I really love I mean, anything Spielberg touches I love, but specifically
there's that scene with Attenborough. Remember where he's eating melting ice cream?
Yes.
With Laura Dern.
Yeah.
And he does this whole. It's David Attenborough does this fantastic scene while eating melting ice cream about an ant farm or something.
Yep.
And he just thought it was the same kind of
flea circus.
Flea circus. Yeah. It's a fantastic scene. But you realize how bankrupt he is.
Yep.
And helpless he is.
Yep.
Well, go get my kids. You know, go get my grandchildren. You're right.
He's just like this like absolutely abominable person. And like I said, when you first watch it, because maybe it's because like he's an older man, he's all in white, he's really kind of he's got the cane, he's like very unassuming.
He's a grandfather.
He has his grandkids who, like, I mean, come on, man.
Who he's using as shills.
It's terrible. But just rewatching it, I just like anytime I watch Jurassic Park, you know, since I was a kid, I'm just like, wow, this guy is like the absolute worst.
But I think that is one of the reasons why it works, because the villain, the mad scientist in this, is not a scientist. He's a show barker. He's a carnival huckster, and he's using his wealth to buy the science to be able to get what he wants.
And it's like, it's funny that like we're discussing Jurassic Park. I went to the Mystic Aquarium with my college roommates last weekend or the weekend before, and somehow there was like an AI, it was not some sort of AI like virtual reality thing where you could like be with dinosaurs, and it was like one of my roommates did, and she said it was like really realistic. And somehow we got on the topic of like, if Jurassic Park was real, would you ever do it? And we had like literally like an hour-long debate on whether any of us would do it. We just talked about like the ethics behind it and the lack thereof. And yeah, so it's just funny that we're talking about it, but it's like, I don't know. I always just think Jurassic Park is just like,
Alexis, that's a very good question, because that's the same question that AI is being asked right now.
Yeah.
Do we do it?
No. No.
Unfortunately, the reality is it's going to get done. It's going to be part of the story. The question is how are we going to embrace it or not embrace it?
Right.
But it's going to be there, because there's money saving ability there. You know, the question is can they tell a story? And and will you be able to get that human quality about it? We showed a film this past year at our festival. It was called I Hope This Helps, where the conceit was the director sat down in front of a computer, installed AI software in there, and started, I want to create a campaign to kill AI, and used AI as his tool. And they had this entire thing, and they developed all this stuff. And literally in the Q&A afterwards, what the director took away from this was he thought he actually had a relationship with the AI, and the AI did not know who he was.
Of course not. Yeah.
And that's the chasm that is going to always exist.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. I think it is interesting that the writer of Jurassic Park was also the writer Michael Crichton, Westworld, and along with paranoid sci-fi. Yeah, and he's been thinking about this for a long time, because Westworld was the 70s, wasn't it?
Yeah. Jurassic Park book is brutal, by the way, if anyone.
I love the book. Yeah.
Well, like I read it when I was in college, thinking that it was going to be like the movie. I was like, much more graphic. It reminds me of the time I read Jaws when I was in 5th grade, and I was like, that's not like the movie.
But Spielberg, interestingly, with Jurassic Park, he does a pretty good, again, back to tone, like the little hand moving of Laura Dern's head. He has all these little things, and you get these little kids and some pretty horrific stuff.
Yeah.
That movie still manages to pull off some sweet moments, even in that kitchen, up in a tree and whatever. Yeah. The movie gets away with more violence than it should because he leavens it in the story. So.
But that's what a good writer will do anyways. A good director is break up the tension with some humor so that the tension can be rebuilt again.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And then, it's funny. I'm working on a project and I'm worried about tone on the screenplay. So that's why I keep bringing it up. That's what I'm worried about this week. Sorry. But I am. Filmmakers, you worry about tone. How far can you go?
Yeah. How far can you push it? Yeah. And I tell you, 12 Monkeys, which is our next film, is one of those films that I believe does pushes the envelope. And here's a clip from 12 Monkeys.
Right. I got a little carried away explaining the inner workings of the institution to Jim.
I don't really come from outer space.
Oh, L.J. Washington, he doesn't really come from outer space.
Don't mock me, my friend.
Get out of my chair!
It's a condition of mental divergence. I find myself on the planet Ogo, part of an intellectual elite, preparing to subjugate the barbarian hordes on Pluto. But even though this is a totally convincing reality for me in every way, nevertheless, Ogo is actually a construct of my psyche. I am mentally divergent in that I am escaping certain unnamed realities that plague my life here. When I stop going there, I will be well. Are you also divergent, friend?
And I just love that little Looney Tunes music there with the shoes. I'm looking at our first four films here, and they all deal with a little bit of reality and non-reality. And I'm wondering if that is something specific to the 90s, that as a culture, we were trying to grapple with the changes that were going on, that we came out of a certain period. I mean, the 60s was all about, the war, and the 70s was coming out, and we did disco and all that stuff. But, then we went into the 80s, and then, I don't know, what was about the 90s that we started questioning these realities? Gattaca is about two different kind of realities. Galaxy Quest is about, one reality being a show versus an actual, space people, believing in it. And, Jurassic Park is a diversion from reality. Mm-hmm. And 12 Monkeys is about a mental breakdown of reality. What is it about the 90s that had us looking at reality that way? Any ideas?
Well, that's a good question. I was just reading Quentin Tarantino saying something. He's got a great book called Cinema Speculation, where he
great book.
Yes, you read it. It's a great book.
Yeah.
And he mentioned something in that. I just read it. He said movies are uniquely vulnerable to the moods, times, fads of the time of when they're released.
Yes.
They kind of become, for better or worse, about that time. And
they're snapshots.
Right. But when you ask what it was about in the 90s, boy, I don't know. I don't think Alexis, I don't really know.
My initial gut reaction to that, Garen, I don't really know if it's kind of what you're looking for, but just as a millennial, I will be 30 in June. For me, when I think of 90s to 2000s, kind of in that time area, it's just there's so much change happening. Yeah. Our reality as we knew it is changing. We're introducing phones, we're introducing computers, we're introducing all this stuff. I mean, I've read so many different articles about this, and I know other friends of mine, family members of mine, me and my brother talk about it a lot, is that millennials have this thing where we yearn for, I'm very happy with my current reality, but we get very nostalgic very easily. Mm-hmm. And there's a wonderful, I think it's on The Atlantic, and it's by this really fantastic female millennial writer. And she talks about why millennials are so nostalgic for their childhoods and their past. And it's because half of our lives was in a completely simplistic sort of way where we didn't have screens, we didn't have all this stuff kind of impeding upon our reality. And now as adults, I mean, I spend my entire day glued to the screen like this. And then when I'm not looking at that screen, I'm looking at my phone. I'm not looking at my phone, I'm looking at the TV. It's really, that's kind of my gut reaction, is that it's just like the change of the technological tide and like quote unquote our reality. That's like what I would think of. I don't know if that's kind of where we want to go with that, but that's kind of my gut.
Boy,
go ahead, David.
That's really interesting, Garen. I just was saying, so do you think, Alexis, your generation thinks that life is not as good as it used to be when you were younger?
Yeah, I mean, I think me and my brother talk about it all the time, like even on like, and kind of funny, but like on Instagram, there'll be like reels and it will be like life before social media, and it will be like AI generated images decently depicting what life looked like before Insta, before Facebook, which I can't stand either of them because they're very addictive and really bad for mental health. But like you just, get addicted. So me and my brother will send them to each other, and it's just like completely simplistic sort of life. So like, I love my life now. I miss the simplicity of not staring at a screen, not having like the world in my pocket, and I fear for, coming generations of like, oh my God, when I hope to have children someday. I hope they're not going to have the internet in their pocket when they're 10 years old. I didn't have that. So I don't want other generations to have that, but in reality, that's probably it. So to answer your question, David, yes, I think a lot of I think a lot of millennials are nostalgic people, and we've also gone through a lot of changes. So I'm sure that doesn't help. But
I will say two things, and then Garen's going to hit you. I can tell. Number one, you're getting old, Alexis. I hate to break.
Yeah, no, I am so accepting of that, David. I am so accepting of that. My dad tells me that all the time. He's like, "Girl, like, you're so old." I'm like, the kids and their phones. Like, oh God.
But you know what? I have such great hopes for you based on the fact that you just said that, because I feel exactly the same way.
Yeah. I think about it all it time. I'm like, wow, I wish.
I'm sure Garen's going to tell you because he's the oldest.
Well, I'm older than both you guys, and I can tell you, one of my catchphrases is, "I grew up in a time when the planet did not glow at night."
True.
True.
He's not kidding.
Yeah,
but there is something that I remember when when the battle between movie theaters and TV was going on, and then later on some other battles talking about screens. And the one thing that I recalled was when you went to the movies, the screen overpowered you.
Yeah.
It was so big, it was so large, and you would sit in the third or fourth rows and you would love it, and the spaceship would go by and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Now we are controlling the screen because it's smaller.
Yeah.
And we are looming over it. And I think that is a big difference in how we are approaching screens at all. And I think, again, it's how you consume your entertainment that is going to be the big challenge for movie theaters and the industry over the next 5 to 10 years.
And I also think it kind of, not to interrupt you, Garen, but just like the accessibility as well. So like you were saying, we control, like, I loved my childhood Blockbuster. I loved it to death. I look at it forlornly as I drive by in my hometown now. It's now like a frame store. And it's like, I hate that, like, I can go on my Roku TV and be like, do I feel like watching Nosferatu or A Clockwork Orange? I wish I didn't even have that. I wish it was just like the only thing available at Blockbuster right now is A Clockwork Orange. So you're going to watch A Clockwork Orange. Like, I wish I didn't have that choice. Like, I don't know. I just think the accessibility in our control kind of takes away the magic of it, if that makes sense.
Well, Alexis, the problem is that you were born in the VHS era. You don't remember when you had to get a film print?
No, VHS's clamshell.
You need a film print of Nosferatu if you wanted to see it. And you have to thread it through a projector. And so, VHS made that easy. And, I don't agree with you. I love the fact that I can watch any old movie, any old black and white crappy movie, because that's what I watch most of now. And I'm catching up on stuff I haven't seen because I don't want to watch the news. Who wants to watch the news? Nobody.
Not me.
I like that. And I think as a filmmaker, I like the fact that there are a million choices because people can still find my movies. And that's what's happening now. Not making me rich or anything, but it's great that they're still around and you still can see them. And when I remember what the barriers were to getting people to see your movies, which is you have to duplicate 9 million VHS tapes, that seems barbaric to me.
That's definitely like that's definitely a huge bonus, as well as like films that are out, quote unquote out of print. Like Near Dark was like gone for like ages. They stopped making, copies of it, and then streaming picked it up. I'm like, oh, thank God, I can watch Near Dark again. Yeah.
But that's a really important thing to remember when you talk about the business.
Yeah.
Because when the business was coming along and DVDs and VHS were first coming along, the industry fought it tooth and nail, thinking that they were going to lose something. And then fast forward 5 years later, DVD is 2.5 times more than theatrical releases. And streaming is now outpacing that as well. So there is a thing where the people that control the power of distribution and production are very reticent to give up that power. And as a result, you don't necessarily get to see some of these other great stories that are out there.
Mm-hmm.
So but before we leave 12 Monkeys, is there anything we should talk about with that film, about the disinformation and the view and time, the time traveling aspects?
I actually thought that the director's other film, The Fisher King, was felt like it was in the same world, but did all that stuff better. Like it felt like it was in the same world as 12 Monkeys. I don't know how you felt. Felt like it was kind of in that same New York kind of.
I've always felt that 12 Monkeys was an audacious start, but it somehow didn't quite fulfill on its promise.
I didn't feel like I got. Whereas it seemed some of the similar themes were for me in The Fisher King. Never been a big fan of 12 Monkeys.
Well, I think it's now time to do our honorable mentions. And so if Mark, who is our director, can roll the honorable mentions, we can take a look at what's in store there. I like all of those films. I like specifically like Strange Days, but Iron Giant reminded me that stories get recycled all the time. And Wild Robot, I don't know if you've seen it, is really Iron Giant again.
Yeah, that's why I haven't seen it. That's what I figured. I looked at the trailer, I said,
But Strange Days is wonderful, and that's Catherine Bigelow, who again never got to do as much work as she should have done, because I think she was a very good director.
Yeah,
didn't she do the Iraqi movie that won the Academy Award? Was that Catherine Bigelow or was that?
Yeah, she did Hurt Locker.
She did Hurt Locker.
She did Near Dark too, which is
Near Dark is awesome.
I love that movie.
That is so good.
And she put up with James Cameron for a marriage, so she got.
Yeah, well, that's James Cameron being
a dick. You can say it. He's a dick.
I was going to say pig.
No, it's a pig and a dick.
Yeah.
Get nasty on the podcast. Go, Garen.
Getting spicy.
Not nasty. Not nasty. I'd say that to his face, maybe. Probably not. But anyways, our next film I love because it's so over the top. It's Starship Troopers, Paul Verhoeven, with a cast of mostly unknowns at the time, except for Clancy Brown. And I'm a big Clancy Brown fan. But, again, it's based on the Heinlein thing. And one of the things that I did want to talk a little bit about is the underlying fascist thing that came out when people were talking about this film, which I didn't see as much as some people seemed to want to talk about. To me, it was a pretty good yarn. And let's take a look at that a clip from Starship Troopers.
Your lieutenant's a real nutbuster.
No one talks about the lieutenant that way. He saved my life.
Mine too. Same for me.
Me too.
Well, sounds like he's quite a guy.
Who do you think saved your ass?
Stand by. Attention on deck.
This is for you new people. I only have one rule. Everyone fights, no one quits. If you don't do your job, I'll shoot you. You get me.
We get you, sir!
Welcome to the Roughnecks.
Ratcats Roughnecks!
At ease, listen up. Got a new Sky Marshal and a new battle plan. Gonna clean out the system's outlying Clendathu one planet at a time. Tomorrow we hit Tango Urilla. After Fleet glasses the planet, MI mops up. Carry on.
I love it when he says, oh, there's only one rule, and then he gives you two.
Right.
And for those who have not seen the Starship Troopers, he was the teacher at high school for most of those extra stars. So they knew him, but they didn't know him as a leader of men in war. So, but I mean, Alexis, what is Starship Troopers fascist?
I don't know.
I mean, I think the uniforms are, but that doesn't.
Yeah, I mean, certainly it has a vibe.
Yeah.
It certainly has a vibe.
But I don't think that's what it's about.
Yeah, I wouldn't call it like an inherently like fascist film, but I can see.
It's not. I don't think it's a propaganda film.
No. But I don't think it's like. I could see someone saying that, but I don't know if I could like have a full argument that it is, if that makes sense.
I think where people were responding to it was from the book by Heinlein, which had more of that fascistic element to it. And I think it's because of the way that it was dressed in terms of uniforms and stuff like that. That was reminiscent of a regimented society.
Right.
But a regimented society does not necessarily mean it's fascist.
Exactly. Right. So I can see where someone could argue that, but I don't know if I could like make a full absolutely yes to that personally.
Yeah, I think to me the big failing is that why did Johnny Rico go for that pilot when Dina Meara was there all the time? And I think that she is a far more interesting human being.
I always love seeing a Busey at work also. Love that. Love seeing that family at work.
David, anything about Starship Troopers?
I got problems, Alexis. I got problems with the movie, Garen. I don't particularly like Starship Troopers. I will tell you a little bit of trivia, though. When they were making this, they did a lot of the effects in Massachusetts at Mass Illusion, and I think at Pittsfield or Lenox, because I was down there for some reason working on another project, and we got to see a bunch of shots being finished for this. And this movie was such a big production that they had houses all over the country, effects houses all over the country. And I got to go down there and see a bunch of the shots and what they shot. And Paul Verhoeven, very talented director, done a lot of good movies, but he did this in the original RoboCop. He did the fascist kind of thing in the original RoboCop, and it was clear, and I got it, and it was funny. In this movie, I can't really tell. I'm like you, Alexis. I don't really know, but I do know Verhoeven and the screenwriter Joe Esterhaus got paid a lot of money to make this movie, and they just come off Basic Instinct with Sharon Stone, where she showed it all. The scene.
Oh yeah.
And
No, please explain it to me.
Can we do this on the podcast? Can people see this? Oh my God. I just did that. Anyways,
we're going to take screenshots of that and send it to everyone you know.
It could be the thumbnail on the video.
It's my last podcast.
But no, I totally agree. It's kind of just like it's hard to kind of pick apart. Like I feel like anything I say is not like super accurate about it. Like I can't really read it that well. I really wish I was more eloquent in saying that, but I completely agree with you. It's just very kind of difficult to get the vibe of what's going on. I think RoboCop definitely did it better.
That being said, I can tell you that people are riffing on elements of that movie, like the attack on the fort in the desert with all those hordes coming out. That's being riffed on and has become part of the culture of our zeitgeist at some point.
But I remember hearing all the gossip when this movie came out and around that, and there were lawsuits. I think Sharon Stone even sued Joe Esterhaus for sexual harassment at one point. There was a lot of behind the scenes, like legal action and problems. And these guys, Verhoeven and Esterhaus, were known to be some cocaine party and maniacs.
Yeah.
I hate to say this. I don't like to judge a movie. I didn't work on myself, but I see a lot of male sexism in this movie. And there's a lot of nudity, which is something to recommend for the movie, but I see a lot of sexism.
Yeah, and I think what they were trying to do with that was to try to show that there was an equality of the sexes, and they just took it to the thing. To me, what I loved the "Do you want to know more?" the informational pieces. I thought that was very witty. You know, that was something I took away.
But he did a similar thing in RoboCop. Those news reports that gag doing news reports came from RoboCop. He did that in RoboCop much better.
Well, I mean, have you ever seen the Soldier of Orange?
I have not, and that's a movie I should see.
You should. That's a very early Paul Verhoeven one with Rutger Hauer in it as a very young Rutger Hauer.
I love him,
and it's a powerful film, and it really set Paul Verhoeven up as an international director.
Yeah.
All right, so let's go. We're really talking a lot. I'm enjoying this a great deal. But let's hit our last film, because I think this is really the one that has had the greatest impact on our culture in a variety of different ways, and that's The Matrix. And here's a clip of The Matrix with one of the great soliloquies about humanity.
I'd like to share a revelation that I've had during my time here. It came to me when I tried to classify your species. I realized that you're not actually mammals. Every mammal on this planet instinctively develops a natural equilibrium with the surrounding environment, but you humans do not. You move to an area and you multiply and multiply until every natural resource is consumed. And the only way you can survive is to spread to another area. There is another organism on this planet that follows the same pattern. Do you know what it is? A virus. Human beings are a disease, a cancer of this planet. You are a plague, and we are the cure.
I don't know. Is that true? Are we a plague?
Yeah. Yes.
Well, I mean, one of the reasons I wanted to make this last is something that I just started reading about, and that's an analysis of the recent presidential election and the concept of red pilling, which apparently is almost an underground thing where young men are being shown Matrix and saying, do you want the red pill to see what's really going on? And then they're being led down into a cult kind of situation. And then when we look again at other elements of Matrix, it really seems to have resonated deeply into our culture. And I'll go back to what I asked earlier about the reality situation is, why did this particular film hit such a strong resonant chord and still reverberates right now, today, some 30 years after it came out?
I will just say it's a fantastic story and a fantastic screenplay. Nobody can take that away from the Wachowskis. They made a bunch of these. This first one, the idea, even if the movie was executed more poorly, and it wasn't, it was executed fantastically. I thought it was a great story. I remember watching it for the first time and going, this is great. Like in the first 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Like even if the rest of the movie didn't pay out, the opening, having a whole movie that's like, your existence is not real, and doing it in a real credible way, I thought was great. And I think that the story of the movie sells. And I think you could have had worse actors, you could have had worse special effects, and it might have still been a good movie because of a great story. Story we can get behind.
So is that why you think it's the script itself is the reason why it resonates today?
Because I think the script pokes you and asks you questions that we all ask ourselves that we don't want to admit to each other we ask, which is like, what are we doing? Am I doing the right thing? Am I in the right reality? Should I be doing this? Why are we all here? And when you got in those movies, they started to kind of hint at religion a bit, which was interesting. I don't think they knew where to go with it. Like they started to hint that the lead Neo was maybe a Jesus type figure. I think they ran out of steam, but that first movie's got so much story juice.
Yeah.
I was into it in the first 15 minutes. As soon as they took him in that scene where they zip his mouth shut and tell him, you do us or do, before even he does the pill scene, I thought that movie was fascinating and a great watch. And I think the story is why.
It reminded me when I started that first 15 minutes, I felt like I was watching a Twilight Zone.
Yeah.
Classic Rod Serling Twilight Zone.
Yeah. I can totally see that.
So Alexis, going back to our previous thing about 90s and reality, this seems to be the epitome of that contradiction with realities.
Yeah, I think to Dave's point, I think it really the reason I like Matrix, and the first time I saw it was in a philosophy class in college, and my professor was a very cool man.
Where did you go to school?
Roger Williams University. He was awesome, and he's like, "You guys have to watch this. We're going to discuss it," and it was fantastic. But I like that it made you just question all these things. And I think that's a lot of the magic of the Matrix. And it is pretty insane that it's so ingrained in our culture, whether for the good or the bad, to this day, especially with the current climate. I think it's pretty crazy.
So, all right. So I'm trying to figure out what is our takeaway from all of this.
I think Alexis just hit it. She just said your movie's message, I just realized, is question authority. That's from your generation, Garen.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay, yeah, I'll take that. I'll take that.
And yet my professor showed it to us. He's like, "You guys are gonna dig this." And
Yeah.
popped it on. Yeah.
Huh. So we go back to the fact that movies and certain elements of popular culture do resonate and do tell us something about that moment in time. Mm-hmm. And for me, as a critic or film historian, I always look at films that sustain themselves over time, mm-hmm. because that particular moment that they snapshot is something about us ourselves. And that is very illustrative about where we are as a race, as a species. And so like when I look at Matrix, I'm saying that's where we are right now, where we don't quite know where we are, and we have to question authority.
I do think, to Hugo Weaving's point, we are a virus. I do agree. He's so
Speak for yourself. I'd rather just be a cancer.
He's just like, you're a virus. Yeah, Hugo, you are right.
Anything else that we need to discuss before we leave the 90s?
90s were so much fun. We had Bill Clinton, things were chill. We had VHS, we had DVDs, no phones, as Alexis.
Betamax.
Blockbuster.
Betamax. I have to always do this. I'm just transferring some. Here's an old Betamax. Remember these?
Love it. my VHS won't work on my Roku TV, so I just like have a huge collection of VHSs just like gently sitting on the shelf and not being used. So yeah, in the 90s we could do that. So
Well, anyways, guys, thanks for joining us today. I really appreciate it. Alexis, anything new you're working on right now besides being the senior editor copy editor at Chewy?
Yeah, so right now I have some fun stuff coming up for Boston Hassle. We're aiming to cover Clown in a Cornfield, which is a really, really great book by Adam Cesare, and it's becoming a horror film by Shudder, so I'm looking forward to covering that. And then on Friday, I'm going to actually be co-presenting with Wicked Queer for Boston Sci-Fi Film Festival for a great film called Reset. I think it's
Polish
Polish
film. Yes.
So that will be really fun. I'm really looking forward to that. And I just
Wicked Queer people are very good people. I like them a lot.
Amazing. We partnered with them for the lovely Sleepaway Camp screening.
Yes.
So I love working with them. It's such a wonderful fest. And I just did Boston Underground Film Festival too, just covered for that, which was a blast. So lots of different things going on.
There are some very good film festivals in Boston. I think that people are not appreciating the fact that there are some really unique, wonderful film festivals operated by some very talented people.
Such passionate people, like incredible film community in Boston. I think when you think of film communities in the US, I don't know if Boston comes to mind first, but I'm just like perpetually in awe of the people I meet, the films I see, the festivals that go on. So
and the number of movie theaters that are still extant.
Oh yeah. Oh, it's amazing. It's amazing.
Yeah. True. It's great.
And David, anything going on in your world?
Yeah, some cool stuff. We're obviously working on new projects here at Edgewood Studios, but the neat thing that's not coming out till this Christmas, so it's way pre-planning it. We're working on trading cards. We have a company called Sidekick Labs that we're partnering with. They're going to do trading cards for our first movie, Time Chasers, like old wax trading cards, like baseball cards, and we're going to do it for the B-movie stars of Edgewood. Available at the Edgewood Studios store, edgewoodstudios.com this Christmas. We'll see. We haven't made them yet, but we had this fantastic meeting. There's a place here that makes trading cards.
Cool.
We're producing everybody else, and so we're partnering with them. I'm very excited about that. It's very cool. It's not a big thing, but it's real neat. So,
well, folks, thank you for joining us. Please, if you liked our podcast here, please like it, please subscribe, please comment, because obviously comments drive the engagement, and we'd love to talk to you about that. Our next podcast is going to be on top films of the 80s, and believe me, it's a hard one to break that down into a nice chunk. So, come and join us again. Get on our mailing list. We'll send you out when the next one is going to be. BostonSciFi.com. You can also see this at every place you get a podcast, but also on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/BostonSciFi. So thank you very much. I also want to thank Mark, our director, and Irene, our producer, who do all the heavy lifting and make me look good. So thank you guys. So until the next time, thanks. And again, thank you to David and Alexis.
From her, you bitch!
history.